Okay, so, a programmer and an error. What's the connection between these two? One exists due to the mistakes of another. Okay, joke aside, hey! My most recent video has been causing some wars, as well as that new recent poll. Keep it up, keep it up! Enough of the theories though. I'd like to scale the X event from XTale and Underverse, so make sure you like and subscribe for more rage bait. Without further ado, let's get into it! In order to scale the X event, we must first understand what the X event is. So, the X event is someone who wields the soul half belonging to XGaster. The sole purpose of the X event was to give a human vessel XGaster's powers to create something new for him. Currently, only 3 people have taken that title, excluding XGaster. Those 3 being XChara, XFrisk, and Cross. I'll kinda be doing this in chronological order, so let's get to it. XGaster, the creator of XTale, the perfectionist. What solely started off as him giving his children a place to belong slowly derailed in him trying to create the perfect story, unlike anything seen before. For XGaster's abilities, he's shown the ability to use bones, mainly to defend. For his offensive ability, he can utilize his hands. They can produce spikes to impale the enemy, which can also be used to give or extract. For example, that's why he gave XChara his soul half in exchange for his. Now for his main ability, the overwrite button. The power to create, modify, or erase anything he wants. Any timeline, any alternate universe. A very overpowered ability. But it has its limits. You see, it can't be used over something or someone that isn't deemed usual in the multiverse. As well as the fact that the power to modify or erase anything only works on code-based entities or objects. So for example, characters like XTchara, Nightmare, or Goku, or all these characters on screen would not be affected by the override button whatsoever. There's also the fact that the soul can be divided into smaller fragments. The smaller it is, the weaker override's power gets. For example, with half of XGaster's soul, the override button can only change a single timeline at once, and the changes made won't always be perfect or permanent. Another thing to know about override's power is when it's being divided, XGaster can program it to work with specifically humans or monsters. Now, you could argue XGaster holds some level of foresight, evident by the dream he has about Cross, this instance in X that foreshadows a scene in Underverse, and this scene in the 21 Years comic. Now for XGaster's durability, well... he's kinda frail. But to be fair, I guess it does balance out. For someone so powerful to wind up taking a lot of damage in return, a glass cannon if you will. However, there is one way he can make up for this. If XGaster can get his hands and utilize the power of a human soul, he can use it to not only boost his override capabilities, but also use his determination to refuse death in the event his HP drops to 0. We see this happen at the end of XTale as well as the end of Underverse 0.4. Now for XGaster's overall power, well, get a look at this. XFrisk, with only half of XGaster's soul, held power equal to hundreds of human and monster souls. So if we follow Undertale's logic, the entirety of the X event should scale above Azrael. For weaknesses, I can only find 2. Firstly, his absolutely abysmal durability, and the fact that chocolate milk has the same effects as alcohol on him. So if he drinks a lot of chocolate milk, he'll get drunk. So if you want to stop him, make him overdose on chocolate milk, I guess. Now, I know I said I was going to scale him chronologically, but I'm saving XChara for later, since the only thing he really did when given XGaster's power was revive and become a friend inside of Frisk. His powers include the ability to summon magic knives. That's it. That's literally it. From XChara, Frisk can reset, and from XGaster, he can utilize half of Override's power, which only allows for the modification of a single timeline, which changes that aren't guaranteed to be permanent. Examples of Frisk using the Overwrite button are mainly just him using it to control and manipulate memories. Examples being when he used Overwrite in an attempt to make the humans on the surface turn on him and try to kill him in an attempt to destroy XGaster's soul, It was also used to make everyone remember what happened in the previous timelines, first used on Cross before then using on everyone else when they rebelled against XGaster. It also seems that XChara can overwrite to some degree despite being a ghost linked to Frisk for the time being. Now for XFrisk's durability, I guess it's around the same level of an average human? I don't know, because as we see from this shot, Undyne Spears tore off Frisk's arm, as well as Cross with half of his soul turned him into Rengoku. So I'm gonna estimate around 10-20 defense? I think that's a decent value. Overall power, we've already been through that. His power literally rivals the souls of hundreds of human and monster souls combined. Now for his weakness, this kid has a temper, which I guess is justified considering everything the two have been through, but it's the reason he ended up losing his soul as well as the entire universe to Cross. I mean, look at this instant from the 21 Years comic. Frisk was genuinely tweaking out over some sand being thrown at him. Cross. After killing XFrisk and stealing his soul, he became the new X event. Now this is where things get interesting, so let's go through it. Cross's abilities are similar to Sans', considering he is XTale's version of Sans, so he can use bones, blasters, and telekinesis. Now for his new powers as the X event, so, remember when I said XGaster can program his soul to only work with humans or monsters? He programmed that soul to only work with humans. As a result, Cross cannot overwrite nor can he access any of the X event's abilities without Chara's input. In other words, if XChara didn't steal himself inside of that soul, then Cross wouldn't have been able to do anything in the show until Season 2. And that's if Season 2 could have even happened if he couldn't use the X event's powers. Thankfully, XChara sealed himself inside that soul, so he can grant Cross some of the X event's powers, but not to the fullest extent. For example, instead of the overwrite button, Cross gets something called the hack knife, which is basically an inferior version of the already incomplete overwrite button, as the hack knife could only modify code. Examples of this include Cross using the knife to transport all of Underfel's node into XTale, as well as him using it to make Felsans fight for him. However, just like the incomplete overwrite button, that change wasn't permanent, and Fel slowly regained control of himself. He can also summon red knife projectiles. XChara can also control Cross's body if he feels like it. One instance being when XChara tried to kill Cross so he could reunite with Frisk after he had his soul stolen, as well as him trying to take back control in part 1 of episode 0.3. Now we move on to Cross's durability. He's rather tough. Despite having 0.5 HP, he's been shown to take plenty of hits. Whether this is a result of Chara's determination or not, I'm not sure, as it's never elaborated on, so we can only speculate. Post-editing, it's because he can negate damage. He also survived having half of his soul being destroyed, by the way. Now for his weaknesses, Cross is extremely vulnerable to off-guard attacks. If he's hit by one, his soul will be exposed and up for grabs. There's also the fact that XChara can literally gatekeep all of his powers if he feels like it, and that's another thing. Even if XChara isn't awake, he still needs his input to use any of his abilities. And for no reason, here's an instance of Cross entering the flow state. Now we move on to the final one, XChara, the first and last prototype. After taking 95% of Swap Chara's soul, he's regained control over his body as well as the X event's powers. His abilities are the same as XFrisk's, however, the difference lies in how he uses his powers. So for starters, he retains his knife abilities and utilizes the hack knife just like Cross did, and can overwrite. How he uses his abilities, for example. When he first appears in Underverse 0.3, the first thing he does is scream. Says scream immediately corrupts the entire timeline. After that, he uses the hack knife to transfer all of his underswapped citizens to XTale. After that, he uses the overwrite button, using it to make Swap, Papyrus, Sans, and Chara kill each other, basically trapping them in a temporary death loop. He also uses it to turn Sans and Papyrus into bloodthirsty amalgamates. He also makes them fight for him against Ink. However, because the overwrite button is incomplete, that change wasn't permanent, and the toon still reverted back to normal. A weakness even XChara seemed unaware of up until that point. With the hack knife, XChara also seems to hold the ability to just outright erase code. Now for durability, he's still vulnerable to attacks, but he can simply negate all damage as long as he can overwrite. For his weaknesses, just like Cross, he's vulnerable to off-guard attacks that expose his soul. There's also the fact that this kid just talks too much instead of staying focused on his goal, which in turn ultimately led him to lose and was the reason why there's a Season 2 of Underverse. Yeah, that's about it. And so, that's it. That's the X event for you. Now to wrap up this video, I'd like to share something. So, in case you've been living under a rock, I'm working on a comic now. Check it out in the description. This is probably going to be my last video of the year. If it is, I'm wishing you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Take care, everyone.